Listen Up with Jim Potts. Listen up, business owners, CFOs, human resource managers, and all managers and supervisors. Jim Potts is answering and addressing your questions and concerns, helping you stay out of court. Furthermore, please be advised that Jim's answers are not legal advice and are only intended as a guide based on his years of experience. The phone lines are open. 1-855-4-J-POTS. That's 1-855-457-6887. You can also email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. Ready to listen up? Here is Jim Potts.
Hey, Jim Potts back on the air. Let me take a moment to tell you that we're getting calls and concerns now regarding active shooter situations. We're getting emails and inquiries regarding whether or not what they should do to prepare themselves for a scenario that presents an active shooter in the workplace. Now, we represent about, 300 clients on a national basis, and we're getting these calls, and here's what I'm going to extend. On September 14th at 1 o'clock, we are in fact doing a seminar on the impact of domestic terrorism on the workplace. So if you're interested, in attending that seminar, then you got to contact my office or send us an email at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com to say that you would like to reserve a seat. Now, let me just tell you something. As what we've been telling clients is that there's something out there called the Workplace Security Act of 1994. You can look it up yourself, all right? But that act specifically states that, in fact, employers have got to take reasonable steps to protect and secure their employees in the work environment. Now, to me, it's an act that is a little known situation because people aren't paying attention to that. The reason why they're not paying attention to it is simply because of the fact that unless something happens there at their facility, then they almost don't worry about it, and to a certain extent. And that's why it's drifted along all this time. Now is what's going on is that people are becoming more and more aware about former employees who are, disgruntled employees coming back and doing things like the San Bernardino situation or other types of scenarios where disgruntled employees, disgruntled customers, they're coming back and they're doing things at the work environment. So I think some of that is in fact driving this, and it makes sense that it would. And that's another reason why I'm doing this seminar. There's no charge for the seminar, by the way. All right. Now, let's go through a couple of steps here to determine whether or not you may already be in compliance, all right, with the act. Now, here's a question for you. Workplace environment. Is your place a safe, supportive environment so that a victim/employee can seek assistance? Have you informed of all employees upon hire what the policy would be in the event of an event? All right. Number 2, have you informed all employees about the policy upon hire, and did you check with them to see if they understand the policies and that assistance is available and who the person is that they would contact? Now, I'm taking you through these steps for a reason, because if you can look at these steps and say no anywhere down here, then I think potentially you have an issue. Now, third question. Do you have a multidisciplinary response team that meets regularly to review policies and discuss situations that have occurred? Now, don't tell me nothing's ever occurred. Have you ever had 2 employees get mad and almost get in a fight, yell and scream at each other? A domestic situation where somebody's current or former lover has been up there looking for them? Those things happen. Disgruntled customers, disgruntled former employees, issues with vendors, any of that? Number 4, your workplace policy includes addressing the impact of domestic violence, sexual harassment, employee violence, and customer violence. So, do you have a stated policy regarding those areas? Because that's what you need. And if you don't have this so far, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. If the answer is no on all of these, so far I would say you're in trouble. 5, have you consulted with legal counsel to make sure that all of your policies, practices, and procedures are within state and federal guidelines. Now, look, let me just tell you something. These plaintiff attorneys, they're getting smarter. They're seeing issues where the employer is failing to follow the guidelines I'm giving you right now, that you have policies and procedures in place in the event there's any kind of workplace violence. Now, let me tell you, they're doing things like failure to secure, all right, employees in their jobs, failure to protect. They're doing things like negligent hiring, negligent retention, hostile work environment, workers' comp. All of these are different avenues that an employer can come after you if you don't have these things in effect. What have you done? What did I tell you the act says? You got to take reasonable steps. California's labor code is very similar. All right. Do you provide training for your managers and supervisors and employees what to do in the event something happens? No training? You could have an issue. All right. Number 7, do you have an EAP, which is an employee assistance program, available to assist your employees in the event that something does happen, that you can refer them to your medical provider and therefore render some types of psychological assistance, etc., when something really big happens. All right? I guess it doesn't really have to be so big. Number 8, do you have a confidentiality and private policy in place to protect the confidentiality and privacy of employees when in fact they have some kind of situation that occurs? It might be more on the private level, domestic squabbles, etc. And don't forget, in California, by the way, there's actually leaves of absence available for people with this business about domestic. All right, if they need to take off because they've been, I started to use the word manhandle, but let me just tell you something, okay? It's not just manhandle, it's woman handled also. Because I can tell you that there's times when I went out on patrol, when I go by on a call, what we call a 415 family, which is just basically a family disturbance. And I can tell you that there's times when I walked in there, and you walk in there, and the employee and the husband got dusted by the wife. So this happens both ways. So just to let you know that, all right? It's not just guys always beating up on women. There's some women out there that are tough also. All right. Now, do you have policies in place addressing appropriate action to take when an employee has engaged in or been the victim of violence in the workplace? Are those written policies? You see, most employers, they'll have a violence in the workplace policy in their handbook. Here it is, nice and neat and pretty. But that's it. What are you doing? All right. What do you have besides that? How are you enforcing that policy? Are you writing people up? Are you firing people? What are you doing? Number 10, do you have a response team to violence in the workplace? Somebody that goes out and handles these things on your behalf. Writes it all up, keeps a log. I mean, hopefully that log will be very short, depending on what kind of business that you're in. But you still need to be able to have this information available. All right. Do you have policies, practices, and procedures in place for handling the aftermath of a violent incident at work or some kind of major event? What happens? Now look, I know in some respects you probably have a safety manual that talks about no lifting, no doing this, don't climb up on a ladder, whatever the case may be. I know OSHA requires some of that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about security, making your employees secure in the work environment. And like I told you, these are issues for plaintiff attorneys. They are, in fact, coming after employers. All right. Now, do you have a violence in the workplace security plan in place? And that's what I'll ask you. It's required by law. If you don't have it in place, I'm telling you right now, you're in violation of the law. You can you can be cited for not having it, and I can almost guarantee you that if something happens and an employer can be sued by a former employee who goes to an attorney and says they were injured, as a result of some kind of violent act, and now they say, give us a copy of your workplace security plan, and you don't have it. All right? So, September 14th, the seminar is excellent. There's no charge for it. If you want to come to that seminar, like I told you, listen up at JamesWilliamPottsLLC.com. Send us an email that you'd like to attend so we can get you on the list. All right? We can get you on the list. All right? Now, there's limited seating. And I think by the time you get this, it might be only a few days before. So as soon as you get this, if you're interested, you make sure you let us know. Send that email off. We'll be checking those emails very closely because we're also doing an announcement before that with our clients as well. All right. Now, this business about violence is getting out of hand. Your employees look to you as an employer to make sure they're secure. We've had people tell us, yeah, but I don't see an issue. Well, I will tell you this. You have to understand that your perspective is subjective. What you think is not an issue, they may think is an issue. So they may look at it like, what's their comfort level? So it's just something for you to think about. Times are changing, and you want to make sure that they're secure in the workplace. And look, you want to know the truth? It's not just for them. It's for you also. Because remember, you could just be sitting there also when something happens. All right? Okay, with that last comment, it's time to close out this segment. But let me remind you that you can also hear us on Facebook at Listen Up and subscribe to us on iTunes. Just look for Listen Up with Jim Potts. And as a reminder, we take calls every third Friday. We can be reached at 855-4J-POTS or 855-457-6887. Or you can email us, as I just told you, and some of you do consistently, at listenup@JamesWilliamPottsLLC.com. Okay, I'm Jim Potts. Thanks for listening. I'll continue to fight the fight if you continue to listen. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for being a part of Listen Up with Jim Potts. We take your calls every third Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for your questions and concerns. Call us at 1-855-4J-POTS. That's 1-855-4J-POTS. Again, that's every third Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at 1-855-4J-POTS. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes, and link up with us on LinkedIn. You can also email us at listenup@JamesWilliamPottsLLC.com. Until next time, make it a great week.